Hey everybody, we are on the final 3 chapters of A Game of Thrones, the book. We're doing Jon, Catelyn's, and Daenerys' chapters. This has been a long time to get here, hasn't it? Okay, so we are on Jon's chapter, and he is mounting up his horse, getting ready to leave Castle Black. Everyone's asleep, no one's around to see him leave except for Sam, and Sam is trying to implore him to stay because he knows that if he deserts the Night's Watch, of course he will die. Jon doesn't care. He knows that at this point everyone's asleep, no one will see him leave, and they won't realize that he's left until the next morning when no one gets Mormont's breakfast for him. So he's getting ready to leave. Sam's trying to get him to stay. Jon says, "Get out of the way, I'm going to ride over you." Sam says no. Jon starts to ride, and Sam, of course, jumps out of the way because we know he's a coward and he doesn't want to get run over by a horse. That doesn't seem conducive to health. Jon is thinking about where he's going to go. Part of him wants to go to Winterfell because he just wants to see Bran and be back home, but he knows that if he goes there, Maester Luwin is going... Is it Luwin? But he knows that if he goes there, Maester Luwin is going to like turn him away at the gate because he's abandoned the Night's Watch, and that would, that's shameful to the Stark name, even though he's a bastard. So he knows he can't go there. He wants to go meet up with his brother, Robb, and join him, even though he doesn't really know what Robb would say to him. He knows that if Ned were here to talk to him, he would tell him, like, you need to go back to the Night's Watch. You can't abandon them. You said an oath in front of the old gods and the new, and your new brothers, like, you can't abandon them. But he's trying to shove that in the back of his mind, and he's thinking about Maester Aemon and how 3 times he had a chance to leave the Night's Watch when all the Targaryens were being, like, killed and everything, but he didn't do that because he's very honorable, and Jon's like, but I'm not him though. So Jon is riding kind of recklessly in the night, really fast, going through the woods. Ghost is keeping up next to him for about 1/4 mile, then he slows down, but Jon's not worried about him because he's a direwolf and nothing's really going to bother him in the woods. He'll come at his own pace or whatever. Jon passes Molestown, which is 3/4 under the ground, which is very smart. I mean, it's the north and it's very, like, cold, so I would think that underground they'd be kind of insulated from the cold, and the wind, like there's no wind coming in through walls and stuff. Anyway, I just thought I was interested. He passes Molestown and he realizes he's kind of been riding really fast and he could have hurt himself, so he slows down to let his horse rest a little bit. He's walking her. He goes to the woods. He starts calling for ghosts, and he hears people in the woods, and he realizes that it's Grin and Pip and Halder, and they have come after him to look for him to bring him back to Castle Black. So the 3 of them are arguing about which way they think Jon would have gone, and Halder hears something. He tells him to be quiet, and Jon's trying his hardest not to say anything, and then Ghost makes a noise next to him, and he's like, damn it, Ghost. Ghost gave him up. So they find him in the woods, and they're telling him, listen, you need to come back to the wall with us. And Jon's like, I need to be with my brother. And they tell him, we are your brothers now. You have taken an oath. You need to come back with us. We're looking out for your own good. They surround him. They start saying the words to the Night's Watch oath. He's like, damn all of you. Because he knows that they're right. Like, he's going to be killed if they find him. It doesn't matter who he is. And not to mention, at the beginning of the book, we saw Ned Stark behead a guy for leaving the Night's Watch. Like, you saw that. Don't be stupid, Jon. Just go back to the wall. So Jon is going back to the wall with the 3 brothers, and he's noticing how short the ride seems going back with them than it did when he was going south by himself. They make it back before dawn, before anyone really noticed that he's gone. The next morning, he brings Mormont his breakfast, and Mormont's like, I'm glad you're back. And Jon's like, what? How do you know? How do you know? And Mormont says, like, do you think I'm dumb? They didn't make me Lord Commander because I'm an idiot. Aemon told me that you would go. So Mormont and Aemon knew that he was probably going to leave. I guess they were just kind of waiting to see how it would play out. Mormont says, honor set you to go to the King's Road, and honor brought you back. And Jon says, my friends brought me back. And Mormont says, I didn't say it was your honor that brought you back. So Mormont tells him, like, he had a watch kept over Jon, and if he hadn't come back on his own, that he would have been brought back by other people, and it would not have been friends. So it's a good thing he came back on his own. So Mormont tells him, like, listen, you're not the only one who is touched by this war. You know, Ned Stark might have lost his head and your brother's leading the way, but my sister and my family are also marching with him. You know, so he's like telling him, like, you're not the only one here who's affected by this. A lot of people are. But we have a bigger battle here that we are fighting than they are there. You've seen the dead come back to life with me. Like, duh, dude, we have things to do. And Mormont tells him, like, my place is here. It doesn't matter what is going on there. I need to be here. Where is your place? And he tells him, like, Benjen isn't the only rider we've lost this year. Do you think that war that they're fighting down there over the throne, or who was sitting where, is bigger than the one that we are fighting here? And he says, you know, the blood of the first men flows in the veins of the Starks. Your father sent you here for a reason. Your direwolf found the whites and led us to them. He saved my life. Like, I think you're supposed to be here for a reason. He says, I want you and that wolf to be with us when we go beyond the wall to try to figure out what the heck is going on. He's like, are you with me? And Jon agrees. He's like, I'm yours, my lord. He's going to go with him. He's like, go put on your sword, son. We got stuff to do. It was a nice chapter, actually. Like, the last few pages of him talking to Mormont were really like, yeah, let's go do stuff. It was really nice. And it was really nice that Mormont was like, I'm affected by this too. My family, my sister, and all her sisters, like, they're all marching with your brother. Like, my family is involved in this also. And not to mention, you know, also probably some other people who are there at the wall from the north are involved in following Jon's brother. Like, everyone's affected by this. But you made an oath. You're supposed to be here. Quiet the fuck down. I understand you're upset, but just breathe for a minute. We have stuff to do. Okay? So, it was a nice chapter. We are on to Catelyn's chapter. I'm going to see Catelyn's home and where she grew up and see her father. They make it to land and Edmure is there. He welcomes them. Catelyn immediately asks about her father. And Edmure and his steward say that, you know, her dad's pain is constant and really bad. But he didn't want to send word because he didn't want that information to be taken by the Lannisters, because if the Lannisters knew that he was sick and on his deathbed, they would have attacked. And Catelyn feels kind of guilty because she feels like that wouldn't have been the case if she hadn't taken Tyrion hostage. Which is true. So Edmure escorts Catelyn to the house and to see her father, and he's like happy to see her. He calls her little cat. That's so adorable. I like that we get to see them have a reunion, because in the show I think he's dead when they get there, or we don't see them interact. So I kind of assumed that he died before they got there. But it's nice to see her like talk to him before he, you know, he passes away. Obviously he dies. Catelyn is, you know, upset with him. She's like, you should have told me and sent word that you were sick. And he's like, I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to worry you. Things are going on. I didn't want to make matters worse, pretty much. He says he's been, you know, drinking milk of the poppy and sleeping a lot, but he wanted to be awake for when she got there because he wanted to see his daughter. Aww. He asks if Lady, what's her face? The crazy one. The sister is with her. And Catelyn's like, no, she's not here, Dad. And her dad wants to know why she didn't come with him. And Catelyn says, you know, she feels safer in the Eyrie there with her son. He asks about Blackfish and wants to know if he's finally gotten a wife. And Catelyn's like, no, he hasn't married yet. And the dad goes off like, you know, he's stubborn. We had him arranged to marry someone and he didn't follow through with it. And the girl ended up marrying somebody else and it was a big old mess. Like, he's just mad. He wants his brother to have a girl. So Catelyn finishes up her visit with her dad and she asks Theon where Robb is. And Robb has gone to the Godswoods. So, you know, Catelyn, of course, is touched by that because she's like, he's more like his father than I thought. He's, you know, because Ned would have gone to the Godswoods too. So she goes off to look for him and she realizes like the last time she was really there is when she was young with Lysa and Peter and they were all kids. And apparently Peter was trying to kiss everybody. He tried to put his tongue in Catelyn's mouth and she was like, what the fuck, no? And he did it to Lysa too, but Lysa liked it because she was weird like that. Is Peter like gross? That's nasty. So Catelyn catches up to Robb and he's like, we have to call a council. Renly has claimed his brother's, you know, crown. And she's like, Renly? I thought Stannis would have. And Glover's like, yeah, we all thought he would have. So they're having a council. All the men are talking about you know, giving their opinions on everything. Robb is kind of listening to them. And he's like, Renly isn't the king. Joffrey is. And someone says, you know, Joffrey's the one who beheaded your father. He's like, yeah, but Joffrey is the oldest son of Robert, so he sits on the throne. And if he dies, which I intend him to die, Tommen would take the throne. And someone says, yeah, but he's no less a Lannister than Joffrey is. And Robb says, you know, but even if it wasn't the youngest son, it should be the oldest brother, Stannis, not Renly. Like, what makes him a king? And someone tells him that he has been crowned a king, and Highgarden and Storm's End support his claim as king. Which is weird to me, because like Robb said, even if it wasn't Joffrey and Tommen, it would still be Stannis, who is the older brother. So what the heck made Renly think that he could get in on this? I don't understand. But whatevs, you know, do you, boo. So Catelyn's listening to them all go back and forth over who's doing what and why or whatever. And she's like, okay, but what about a peace? Can we not figure out a way to end all of this peacefully? And they're like, they beheaded your husband. Woman, you're the kinder sex, we understand that, but no. And she's like, you know, give me Cersei Lannister and I'll show you the kinder sex, but we need to figure out a way to do this peacefully. And they're like, no. And I'm kind of with everybody else. No. They beheaded Ned Stark. They have formed an army. They are marching and fighting people. What do you think is going to happen at this point? Great John jumps up and he's like, my lords, listen, Renly means nothing to me. Stannis means nothing to me. Why should any of these people tell me what to do while they sit down in King's Landing or Highgarden or in the Dorne and rule the North? They don't know anything about what's going on up here. They don't know about the wall and all the hardships that we face up here in the cold and the snow. And I don't want to bend my knee to any of them. So Robb is our new king, King of the North. And then Mage Mormont, who of course we were kind of just talking about in the last chapter with Jon, stands up and says, King of Winter. And then they all start shouting, King of the North. And he's crowned. Thank you, Catelyn. Because her talk of like having peace kind of drove them to be like, girl, what? And so now he's the King of the North. Yay. Robb is. Okay, we're on to Dany's last chapter of the book. Do all the books end with Dany? They should. Like, they should. Don't all the seasons end with Dany? No, 4 didn't. We're in the desert. Dany is having the people set up Khal Drogo's funeral pyre, and they have the magic lady tied to it. The lady is praying or whatever. Dany says she's sick of it, so she has Drogo go over and like hit her with the whip a couple of times. I mean, normally I would say I do not approve, but this lady was evil, so the Blood Riders are going to add the weapons that Dany had received at their wedding to the fire, and she's like, those are mine, I intend to keep them. She won't let them burn them. Jorah goes to address her and he calls her princess, and she stops him and she's like, why do you call me that? My brother was your king, was he not? And he's like, yeah. And she says, well, I am his heir. What was his is now mine. I am your queen. And he's like, oh shit, my queen. So he like kneels down. He's like, my heart has always been yours. That's never belonged to your brother. Please come with me east and don't do what I think you're about to do right now. You know, he thinks that she's going to kill herself up on the pyre with Khal Drogo. He's like, I understand that you loved your husband. I loved my wife once, but don't do this. And she's like, you don't understand what I'm doing yet. I can understand it. Like, she hasn't shown any kind of like cunningness or strategizing yet, so he doesn't know who she is. So I can understand his point of view in this. He's like, I don't want to see you burn. And she says, is that what you are worried about? Like, I'm not going to do that. And he says, that's not what you intend to do? And she says, no, sir, I'm going to be fine. Chill out. She turns to people and tells them, you all will be my KALASTAR. You are no longer slaves. Take off your collars. If you want to leave, you can leave. Nobody is going to hurt you. She takes the gifts that were hers, that were given to the Blood Riders before, and she gives them to the 3 people that she now names as her Blood Riders, and says, you know, you're going to be my Blood Riders. And they're all like, listen, we can take you to Via Stealth Rock, which is where you're supposed to go from here, but I'm not going to be, that's not how this works, honey. They're so confused. They are so confused. and she tells Sir Jorah Mormont that she's gonna make sure he has like the best long sword ever as his gift for his loyalty to her, whatever. She goes and gives herself a bath in scalding hot water because it doesn't bother her. Dresses Khal Drogo and has him put on the pyre. She puts her dragon's eggs up on the pyre, and her maid is like, have you gone crazy? And she's like, is there a very long way from crazy to wisdom? Like, who knows? She orders that the witch lady should be tied to the pyre. Mormont's like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing? Don't do this. And Dany's like, you swore to listen to me. You swore yourself to me, so do what I say. They tie her up to the pyre. The lady says, nope, you're not going to hear me scream. And Dany's like, yes, I will. She orders that the pyre is lit on fire. It starts to burn. The magic lady starts to sing. They can start to smell burning flesh. And the lady starts to like scream. Like, duh, we knew she was going to scream. Dany's looking in the fire and she sees like the form of Khal Drogo on a horse mounted, like riding off, and it's a beautiful scene, honestly. Like it's very, very moving. She walks into the fire to join Khal Drogo, and the whole time she's thinking only death can pay for life. The fire is burning, it's all big, and the next morning Jorah finds her untouched by the fire. Okay, I can't say untouched because in the book, like, her hair is singed off, her clothes are all gone, but like her hair is singed off too. It was much more like magical in the show than it was in the book. Like, she's bald, pretty much. Like, her hair is singed. But she's sitting there alive, and the dragons are drinking milk from her breasts. Do reptiles do that? I don't think they do. But she's literally like the mother of dragons. Like, she's feeding them like they're her babies. And Mormont's like, blood of my blood. He's like, what the fuck? The 3 guys she picked as her blood riders kneel, and they all say blood of my blood because they're like, what the fuck? This girl has 3 dragons and she was in this fire and is unburnt. Because they've never seen anything like this. And this is how she gets her Khalasar and her blood riders. And she has Jorah and her dragons, and it's the beginning for Dany. And this is the first time in hundreds of years that the night came alive with the Song of Dragons. Yay! I'm not breastfeeding no dragons, I'm sorry. Their teeth have to hurt. And that's it. We are done with the first book. Finally. Took me long enough, I know, I'm sorry. Of course, if I hadn't seen the show, it would have been a little more, I think I would have gotten into the book a little bit more than I did. But when you know what's coming up, or you kind of know the story already, it's kind of like a slow retelling of the show, you know what I mean? Rather than reading the book and then watching the show like, oh, okay, this is that scene. Like, you get excited by it. This is like slow. But I really did enjoy the book. Grimm is a fantastic writer. There's no doubt about that. I don't understand his food fetish. Like, I understand they're eating dinner. I don't need to know it's a suckling pig and that there's an apple in his mouth. Like, dude must have been hungry all the fucking time. Don't write hungry. But it was really good. There were some parts I'm like, okay, let's just get on with it. Like, just get on with it. But he's a very, very detailed writer, which is why it takes him so long to write these goddamn things. If he would stop playing around and running around in big hamster balls, maybe he could put out the last book. But, it's really good. I think what I'm going to do for the second book, because here's the thing. I loved doing like the chapter by chapter retelling and telling you my thoughts on everything. However, I don't know if I want to do this for the whole series, because I kind of feel like just like it takes away from people wanting to go out and buy the book and read it themselves. So I'm not going to do that for the rest of the series. I'm going to read them. I'm going to do kind of like a vlog style of reading it and telling you what I think about certain parts or whatever, and do a general book review of them, but I'm not going to do them chapter by chapter like I did this book. This is hopefully to get people who didn't buy the book interested enough to want to go buy the book and read more. There's so much more detailed. None of what I said or gave you is like even a tenth of what is in the books. Like, they are so beautifully written and detailed, there's no other way to say it, that it really is worth going to read the books alone. also, from what I understand from you guys, books from here on out, the show kind of delineates away from the story, the original story a little bit. So I'm really interested to see how the characters kind of go off different ways in their different stories, or more to their stories than is in the show. So I will be reviewing them. I will kind of give you my thoughts on certain parts when they come up in the upcoming books, but I will not be doing a chapter by chapter retelling like I did for this one. So questions, comments, put them below. I will answer them in an upcoming video. If there are enough questions or whatever, maybe we'll do a Q&A type style thing. That's it. Thank you for joining me on this very long journey, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.